Board. Board games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. We are starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And over here, to this side of me, is the person known as Emily. Emily works for Braincrack Games, and Lewis Shaw does the same. They are partners in business and crime. That's just an expression. I'm not saying they should do time. Board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. Hey, good morning. And hello, Sates, it is lovely to see you. And hello, Alan. It is lovely to see you as well. I say that, but it's more like we don't need to be super pedantic, do we? I don't need to say it's lovely to see a typed message that was done from your fingers and a reminder that you are there. Even though I'm not seeing your face, Alan and Sates, I know that you're there watching on the other side of the screen somewhere. And Xate says, I can't wait to hear where to find love. I have the bits and slides covered now. And so, yeah, I am Bez. This is bedtime in some countries. We are blethering about board games, and today we are talking about love and business. Would you like to tell us very quickly what a little bit about you, why we are talking about this thing? How did we get to?
So Lewis and I are obviously, well, we're married now, but when we we started off dating, we didn't start off married. So I think we've been together for 6 years. And in 2016, so after I think we'd been together for 1 or 2 years, we started Braincrack Games. And then obviously since then we've been working together in a business sense and like living together, and especially during lockdown, being next to each other pretty much 24/7, which presents its own challenges and benefits. So yeah, Bez asked me to come on and talk about what it's like kind of working and living with someone, because it's quite different to just going to an office job.
Yeah, and you've
Very strange, I know.
So you've worked with people who aren't your romantic partner. Is this the only business that you've co-founded though?
I used to run my own pottery business. I used to make pottery, but that was just me. And then we have another side project that we're working on, but isn't public at the moment. So yeah, before this, obviously I worked in offices and call centers and shops and stuff like that. So it's very different.
And hello, Elaine. It is lovely to see you. I actually had a song that I was like, oh, I want to send this to Elaine and see if Elaine can guess the game. And then my phone wasn't working. It was literally a 47-second song because I did record it just so I wouldn't lose it, but I had to record it just on my phone. And if at least a couple of people want, then we can do that at the end or something. But let's get, earlier on. Oh, hello, Odin. It's lovely to see you. And let's talk about brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant? I think we should talk about, have we talked about shelves? Yeah, we have talked about shelves. Shelves are pretty brilliant. We've talked about walls and boxes and bottles. No, we've not talked about mirrors. I don't think we've talked about mirrors. Mirrors are pretty brilliant. And so like mirrors allow you to see yourself And even though you might think, okay, what's this all about? It's just vanity in it. But, you see yourself and then it's like, kind of, okay, this is a reminder of who you are. Andrew January makes the point that, like, as you see yourself more, you might start to accept yourself more. Like, it certainly helps Andrew January. And apparently Andrew January had, like, some sort of dysphoria, and, like, then by seeing them, by looking at pictures of themselves more and just by occasionally looking at themselves in the mirror a bit more, they were like starting to accept themselves, which it doesn't work for everyone. I mean, some people have major body issues that will never be solved by a mirror, but sometimes it's good to see a mirror just for your utilitarian value of, hey, if you are applying makeup, hey, how am I applying my lipstick? Is this okay? Or if you've got like, hey, if you're shaving, you need to be able to have a mirror for that. Or, hey, do I have a big piece of broccoli on the side of my cheek? Because I've been eating and then there's all this broccoli on the side of my cheek or whatever. And yes, mirrors are useful for driving. Good point. Yeah, Elaine wins 100 points for that example. Okay. Apparently I am okay with mirrors. Alan is keeping tabs on his spreadsheet. And yeah, so that's a brilliant thing. Do you have anything else to say about mirrors?
I think you covered it all. I think the driving thing is it's like such a good point, because you think of mirrors as being like a purely like potentially a vanity based thing, but then actually they're very, very useful in terms of like being safe.
And I've seen some places, in little, I don't know if they do this everywhere, or maybe it's just London, but in some like tiny alleyways, they've got a mirror where you're kind of coming from one direction as a cyclist, and then you've got a big mirror so you can see anyone coming from the other direction as you turn around, so you can make sure that, yeah. And mirrors are very useful for writing backwards.
How is Alan like this on the ball at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning?
Alan is pretty on point. And, I should have said hello, Odin. Yeah. Ninja Chat Master. So, we've enjoyed mirrors, and let's move on to other highlights. And I encourage everyone to just tell us things you've enjoyed, because it's all about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and seeing other sides. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. That would be good. Playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, I went to the top of a reasonably big hill over that direction, and I had a chat with Denim, and Denim and I were meant to be working together on Plus. I did basically all the art and design and development, let's say, and Denim was going to come on board for marketing and helping take it to the next stage. But then stuff happened, and this was back in December, so it wasn't just a pandemic, but we had a phone call, and we've decided to split up professionally, which for me, I was like, this just makes a lot more sense. Denim was okay with that. So even though it was a difficult conversation, I'm glad that we established that. And yeah, that was a recent highlight, kind of having now, okay, this is where I am, having that certainty of now it's back on me, like I don't owe anyone anything, if you know what I mean. And also being at the top of the big hill while I was having this phone conversation and being able to see things. Although I didn't take any photos because, I was on my phone. But then also in terms of games I played, I didn't play any board games yesterday. But one thing that I did play, I played a couple of phone app games for about 20 minutes, but they were all rubbish. But the one thing that I did play, which was quite fun, which was more of an interactive cinematic experience, was The Dark Room. If you're familiar with this, John Robertson. So it's a big cult following in UK Games Expo. And John Robertson was doing a 3-hour thing yesterday on stream. And I was sat in for about half an hour of it. And on Twitch, you kind of type in a color, and then it's like a mass voting system. So the color with the most votes, you do that, whether it's go south or go north or turn on lights. And it's kind of, you awake to find yourself in a dark room. Then you say turn on lights. It says, but how can you turn on the lights? Because you cannot see. You cannot find the light switch if you cannot see. Do you see? Like, it's just a whole bunch of comedy. So those were my recent highlights. And yeah, so you've not played or seen The Dark Room?
No, because whenever I'm at UK Games Expo, I'm exhibiting and I'm basically chained to the stand with no free time. No, I think once Wyvern's Lair was on just after his show. So I think like we saw him like hanging around. But no, but that sounds really cool. It's almost like a choose your own adventure, but on Twitch. That's really interesting.
That sounds cool. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it's meant to be all about. Odin's having been experiencing a thunderstorm last night. Extremely refreshing because Odin loves them, but also because the air quality has been so bad with the smoke from the wildfires, which is a terrible thing that's been going on in Australia at the start of the year, now America. And apparently the rain really helps out, so that's awesome. And then Alan Outson says that they built some shelves yesterday so they could store all the wood I have for making shelves from. And what are some of your biggest recent highlights, Emily?
I've not played many games lately. I did play test a game on Thursday night, which was really fun. Someone asked me to play it and give some feedback, which I really enjoyed because I've not done that for ages. I think maybe we played some Pandemic Legacy and we played Sagrada last week as well because I bought that secondhand from the Trading and Chat group, which I really enjoyed it. It's a good little puzzle. Other recent highlights, I've put together a like big raffle. Well, I've helped put together a big raffle that you have kindly donated some games to. That goes live at 12 o'clock today. So I'm really excited to see how everyone reacts to all the prizes. And yeah, I just hope that they're as excited as I am.
Yeah, well done on kind of doing the organizational bit, because sometimes it takes someone to kind of be willing to connect people, and that's a wonderful thing. And yeah, hello Tally. They playtested a very cool game called Black Power. That sounds interesting. I assume that's quite a political game about seizing the power. And hello Alex. Feel free to tell us more. But I think it's time for us to delve into the questionably quick questions. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. And I invite everyone in to submit questions in a good nature, no matter how silly. We're going to subject Emily to all the questions that they have not been already subjected to. I say all the questions, but not literally all the questions.
It'll be here for a while.
When did you wake up?
8 o'clock.
How do we buy raffle tickets?
It's UK only, and you need to go to Board Game Raffle Group UK on Facebook and join the group, and then there's information in there.
And going back, it's a political game about the rising of the black people in the US and the world. Sounds cool. Definitely
really
like to hear more about that. So, yeah, maybe we could chat to, link me on Twitter or something, Tally. That sounds super cool. So have you had breakfast today, Emily?
Yes, I had peanut butter on toast.
Nice. What's the last board game you played?
I think it was Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
Did you eat or drink anything during that game?
I think I probably had a cup of tea. It was probably last week though, so my memory's a bit fuzzy.
Now, I'm going to ask you again, what is your favourite Localist board game shop?
I'm so bad at this one because there's none near us. Like Forbidden Planet is our only board game shop in Southampton. And I've never been to any others other than one in the Netherlands that I can't remember the name of. So not a great answer on that one, I'm afraid.
Alan Alton asks, who will win the free 15 p.m. race at Newmarket today?
I don't need what race. I don't even know, Alan.
And would you rather only ever play one game or only be able to play games once?
Oh, that's really tough. I think the second one.
Yeah. What's if you had a library of 10 games but nothing else? So we've upped it to 10 games, or all the other games but only once?
I think it would have to be all the other games but only once, because like, imagine the replayability you'd have to have in that selection of 10 games. Like, that would be really challenging to build that.
I guess it also depends, like, what are we I mean, like, presumably you wouldn't even be allowed to repurpose the components or make house rules or anything, because if you house rule something, that's technically a different game, isn't it? So, I mean, could we have a sort of auction mechanism? How many games do you think it would take you roughly to be able to say, okay, this is your library forevermore,
Oh my
you
gosh.
can never buy games? What's about
That's
50?
really difficult. I don't know how many we've got. Lewis did count them a while ago. I think it's under 100 that we got at the moment, but I still want more. Oh, that's so dumb.
So the answer is over 100 to this one.
Yeah, over 100. Yeah, which sounds really greedy.
Never buy more games. So just the games you have, play them as many times as you want. So like over 100 games, or every other game, but only once.
I still think I'd go for the second option, because otherwise you can't ever play anything new that someone's made. You'd be stuck in like a time warp.
Yeah, I think like this is probably like a thing that we should discuss on like Big Talk or something. Make it a question. Put it to the people. Like, I don't know if I would ever, like, for me, it would have to be a pretty big library. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're saying. You can't just choose the L deck. You have to pick one L game. And I can't just pick alphabetical and play it, okay, alphabetical, speed alphabetical, and alphabetical, solo alphabetical. I have to pick one style of alphabetical. It's, yeah.
Really limiting.
It's kind of like, are you open-eyed? Are you wide-eyed? Like, do you enjoy eating new things?
I do, yeah. Lewis is gradually warming me up to spicy food because I am a big baby, and like I couldn't handle spice before, but he's like gradually increasing more like into the food he cooks, and now I want to eat spicy things. And I think, like, I guess if you were happy with your library of games being like 100 games and you never played anything new, you'd have to be so sure in what you like and like so comfortable knowing the experience that you were going to have when you sat down to play it. Like, you'd have to be just completely content with that, and I just don't think I could be. Like, I want to be able to try new things and see what people are making and like get excited about new developments that people are coming up with, like new mechanics and new art and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I know it's kind of the whole, these are the 5 games that you absolutely have to pick. And I think, like, I don't know if you've heard me on that, and like, for one of them, I did technically cheat because I chose the L deck. And for another one, I technically cheated because I chose 1,000 blank white cards, which I should point out is an actual game. There is an actual game that's called 1,000 blank white cards. And, you know, I'm just going to say Ben Maddox did not do the research properly. So there, if you look on Board Game Geek, 1,000 blank white cards is a game. But, you know, I could use those components for something else. Because, you know, people had done that all over. Anyway, hello, Jess. It is lovely to see you, as always, all the way over from Thailand. And Odin asks, what happens when you wear a game out?
Like, if it was in your collection for that long, do you think?
I think that's asking, like, yeah, if you've played it and maybe the card starts getting damaged, maybe you've got, I don't know, I wouldn't say Yogi because I've never heard of anyone messing up a Yogi card. I mean, I'm sure it'll happen one day. Maybe, like, I don't know how that would happen because you have to actually take scissors, or, you know, John Dodd from Big Person from UK Games Expo and Dragon Meet. They're a weightlifter. They can bench press like 100. They can basically, they could lift either of us up with like one arm in terms of weight.
Oh, I've not, like that. They sound so memorable, and I have no idea.
Like John Dodd, one of the floor managers of. So like, there's two floor managers of UK Games Expo. There's that one person, Ken,
I've no idea.
and then there's John Dodd. Anyway, so
next time we have the actual event, I'm going to be like keeping an eye out to try and work out who they are.
John Dodd, big person, they spent like a good 5 minutes trying to rip up one of the Yogi cards. But anyway, what I was going to say is, with the old style, when it was just paper within a bind, if you had a card that was like in your armpits or something, and eventually you can't play with this, what would you do with it?
It depends on how much I like the game. Like, if I still enjoy the game, then I'd probably I think Alex put in a good suggestion of like laminating or sleeving, which would be smart. Like, if you have a game that you know you're going to play a lot and that like it's a deck builder, so the cards are getting handled a lot, then yeah, you could protect it. It all depends on how like emotionally attached I am. If there's a components that could be replaced, then I'd probably replace them if I really cared about the game.
I mean, I know Alan Oughton did some amazing replacements work. I saw the photo of the old card that literally had a bite mark into it. It was as if some small dog or something had taken the chunk out of it. And then Alan did a really impressive job. But like, laminating or sleeving, do you enjoy the feel of cardboard? Like, would you naturally laminate or sleeve your roll-in rights?
We don't. I think the only game we have sleeved is Splendor, and that's because we bought it secondhand and it came sleeved. But I guess maybe we don't, because we have like quite a few games, we don't usually play the same game over and over again. So I guess we don't necessarily feel like we have to. And like, we've got railroading and stuff like that, and we've not laminated it. And you know, the boards are a bit grubby, but you can still play it.
But Railroad Ink is designed to be dry erase. Ooh. Odin apparently found a way to get dry erase printed on postcards. Better than lamination. But then, do you not need one different postcard every time you play? That doesn't seem great. I mean, Xate laminated the print and play of Assembly and then played it on a floaty in a lake whilst treading water. Oh yeah, I heard about this, that every time Xate would go in and then go out and then make one move, then swim in and then swim out and make another move. And it was a way for Xate to do a bunch of exercise. Oh, apparently it's a postcard that you can use over and over. That sounds quite exciting. Oh yeah, because postcards are kind of shiny.
Yeah, they've got that shiny front to them, don't they?
Okay. What other... I feel like that's a reasonable end to the questionably quick questions. So let's say, can you talk about a recent day in as much or as little detail as you would like?
So usually we both... Well, Lewis will get up a little bit earlier than me and make... Oh.
I never asked, where are you exactly? That should be the first question.
Oh, Southampton. I'm in our living room / kitchen.
Cool. Sorry, carry on with your normal day now.
So Lewis will usually get up like 15 minutes earlier than me and make a coffee. Then that will like drag me out of bed because it takes a lot to get me out of bed these days. I'll feed Rowan. He'll have some like baby rice with puree and some milk. And then we usually like get ready, have showers, and we'll start trying to get some work done. It really all revolves around Rowan and like what he's up to. If he's sleeping, then it's like, oh, okay, we can both get on and do some work. If he's not, we have to work out how to amuse him, or he sits on one of our laps while we're working. So we were recently working on this really complicated spreadsheet that we were both just really struggling with. So we were like sat at our desks for like a really long time, like desperately trying to work out how we could get what we wanted out of this spreadsheet. I think eventually we managed to reach a point where we were happy with it, and then, you know, have dinner, watch some TV. I've been watching The Fall, although I finished it, but yeah, we've been watching The Fall, and then go to sleep. And we do eat lunch. I just forgot to mention it.
Yeah, I mean, you eat lunch when you can, I guess, as an afterthought.
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of all over the place with lunch at the moment.
Yeah, things are all over the place in general. So, I mean, Rowan, who's an expression of love, you might say, brings us, and at this point, it brings us quite nicely to our main topic, which is talking love and business. Because we're talking about working with your partner and respectful questions and comments. Welcome. At this point, we're going to get a little bit more on topic. Feel free to comment, ask questions from like or follow. And so, yeah, let's talk about this. I mean, it's basically about how is it different, and is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, how cautious do you need to be in before we get into it? And hopefully, we'll have a lot of ideas by the end of, in half an hour's time. So, shall we talk a little bit about love first, in as much or as little detail as you would like? Who is Lewis, and how did you meet?
So Lewis is my husband. We're the same age, and we actually both grew up in the same town. Basically, he was just slightly further out at the center than I was. But we didn't meet until I think maybe we were 17, 18. We met at someone's party and started talking. And then like a year goes by and nothing happens. And then on my birthday, I kind of messaged him and asked him if he wanted to meet up, and we did. We played Left 4 Dead and drank a lot of whiskey. Awful. And then kind of from there, we started like unofficially dating. I think after about 2 months, I moved. He was studying at Southampton Uni, and he just rented his first flat after being in halls for a year. And we just decided that I'd move out of my parents' house and go stay with him in this frankly horrible flat here in Southampton.
But at least you have your independence now.
Oh yeah, like I think it was like a big step, like independence wise. A little bit, yes. He was. And then ever since, so that was 6 years ago. And we've moved around Southampton, like we've both had lots of different jobs. And then we found board games through a friend, and Lewis started designing games, and then before we knew it, we were a publisher. And now we're here and married, have a baby. It's like if I'd have asked my 18-year-old self, what would you be doing in 7 years' time? None of this would have featured.
Oh, I mean, yeah, and Tally says that they couldn't make any project together because they have completely different ways of working.
Mhm.
And so, do you think that that's an important thing? Do you and Lewis have a very similar energy?
No. No, I think we're quite different. Personality wise and like organization wise. Lewis is a bit more chaotic than I am, whereas I'm like very detail orientated, like spreadsheets, calendars, lists, like anything I can possibly do to make myself organized, I will be doing. Whereas he's a lot more like, what's going to make me happy? What am I going to enjoy? That's what he likes to focus on doing. So there are clashes because often I'm like the mean person in the corner nagging him that, this really boring thing needs to be done. But it's that stuff that keeps it ticking over, because if we only ever did stuff that made us excited, we would probably be in prison for tax fraud.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of people appreciating, thank you for sharing the story. And Tally asks, how did you align the tasks in general? Because presumably, how do you divide everything that needs to be done?
I mean, it's changed a lot. Because when we first started, we were both working full-time jobs. So it was very much I did kind of admin-y, boring stuff, and Lewis did the creative design work, because at that point we were only publishing games that Lewis had designed. Then we started publishing other people's games, and kind of the work balance stayed the same. And then last year in July, Lewis left his full-time job and went full-time with Braincrack while I carried on working full-time. And now obviously I'm on maternity leave, so we're both kind of working full-time, mostly because I don't know how to take a break from doing work. And I think it's a fairer split now of who does boring stuff and who does creative things. Lewis is a lot more on the like developmental side, like art direction, that kind of stuff. But I'm getting more involved in playtesting, like project management, and stuff like that. So I feel like we're both equally invested in the business in like time and energy, which I think is much fairer than it used to be.
So you get to do a bit of the fun stuff, basically.
Yes.
Like, so, look, I had to check quickly, but Downsize, it came out in 2016, and there's been a continual stream of things coming out, and it started off with with Downsize, with Mind Out, which were Lewis's own designs, and then you moved on to publishing other stuff, and yeah, let me actually order it by year released, and then if you can give me a quick 2 minute explanation of how it's evolved in terms of, yeah, you coming in or whatever.
Yeah, so we started off with Downsize and Mind Out, which were Lewis's titles, which were obviously a lot easier to manage because we weren't like dealing with royalties or anything like that. So they were like the two simpler ones. Then we took on Farsight, which is like a big war game. So we really like stepped up in terms of like production and art and price tag as well. Then it was Dead and Breakfast, which is like a smaller game, like more family orientated. Then Ragusa by Fabio, Venice by David. And then we've got some like other stuff upcoming there as well. So I think recently, like since I've been on maternity leave, it's been a case of like if Lewis is feeling stressed or like there's a lot of work to do, then we look at the list and say, okay, what can I help with? Like, what am I equipped to do? So I've been helping with sales. I'm going to get involved in project management for the RPG project. I'm doing like play testing and helping with the accounts, and it's a lot more like because I think that all the responsibility was on Lewis for such a long time that it's been a challenge to like work out where those responsibilities can lie, whether with contractors or with me. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and you know we've not worked it out. Like there's still things that we need to improve.
But you know, you've gotten a lot of things right. And before I get to Odin's question, I wanted to ask, during those early days when it was ostensibly only Lewis, presumably you were still kind of, I mean, can you talk about like how you became parts of it? Like, were you always part of it? Were you, yeah.
Yeah, so it was always both of us. Like we were always like 50-50 in the business. And I was the one that like did all the like setting up the company, like doing the accounts. And obviously we both have to have sole traders because we're directors, so then there's more tax implications that you have to deal with. So I was definitely more on the make sure we're not breaking the law, make sure we're doing our taxes right, like that kind of like backbone stuff, whereas he was focused on a lot more of like the projects that we were working on. And then when I started my most recent job, which was 2 and a bit years ago, I really dropped off on what I could help with because it was very demanding on my time. And so that was when I was only really involved with like convention planning. So like UKGE, Dragon Meet, Essen, like that kind of stuff. That was where I focused my energy.
Sorts of
And other
logistics
than that,
organization.
yeah, logistics, because that was before my current job. That was what I used to do. I used to do logistics. So yeah, it has changed a lot. It has been very fluid because it's had to adapt with both of our jobs and like life situations. Really, like it has to adapt to that stuff.
And What made you make the move to publishing other people's games?
I don't remember, but I think we used to accept pitches. I think after Mind Out, we had a little form on our website where people could submit ideas. And then, we found Jamie's idea and thought it was really interesting because it had a really cool fog of war mechanic that you don't see very often in board games, although I know like Undaunted has that aspect now. And we were just excited about it. It's cool robots fighting each other. What isn't there to like about that? So yeah, that started the ball rolling. And then after Farsight, we were pitched Dead and Breakfast at Dragon Meet by the designer's friend, because the designer lives in Brazil and we've never met him, but he's very lovely. And then yeah, we get a lot of pitches, and it's a case of like picking out what we like and what we want to develop and what we want to play. Yeah, it all just kind of spiraled from there.
Do you feel like at some point any publisher, if they want to be financially successful, I mean, I know there's exceptions like, okay, Fowers and Ryan Lockhart, who are able to somehow, well, I'm not going to say do it all themselves, because they've got a lot of other people working for them. I mean, Tim Fowers has never done any of the art for their games. But yeah, Gil Hova's never done all this stuff. Yeah, but certainly they're part of this list of financially successful publishers who do their own designs. But let's not ignore all the other work that goes into it. But yeah, do you think that at some point, yeah, you're pretty much going to have to be a publisher that takes pitches?
I think it really depends. I think for us it was a case of partly time pressure, because Lewis didn't really have the time to like design and develop games because he was working a full-time job. And I think it's also that you have to, I'm not saying that people who only publish their own games are egotistical. I'm by no means saying that, but I think it's a case of looking broader. Looking broader is like, okay, can other people offer something that I can't? And is that what I want to publish? And I think for us, the answer was yes. Like, we could get a lot more variety of games. We could get more games quicker. And that kind of was more appealing to us than just sticking with Lewis's work. Especially because in those early days, like, we had a lot to learn about game development.
Yeah, and I guess that's why you get, with Dead and Breakfast, for example, you get design qualities and art qualities that you wouldn't have got if you said, okay, it's only me. And yeah, sure, the least, one day there will be an L deck that doesn't have my art on it, and one day there will be, well, Categorical is going to be an L deck that isn't my design, as in the rules are, the original design wasn't mine, and one day there will be an L deck that's neither my design nor my art. And, that will be exciting, but it's still something that I originated. And so, yeah, it's, I think Odin's agreeing with Xate that they weren't going to say I have a big ego, but they agree with it. I think that's totally fair. Anyway, let's move on from all this calls of ego and stuff, because let's talk specifically about this. Let's go through my general thing, and we're going to get quite personal. And so, obviously, if any of this you feel uncomfortable, feel free to just stop it. And if anyone judges you, I'll like shout at them, and Xate will attack them with a sword. So we're talking about, I mean, I think that the definition of romance is out with the show. And personally, I feel like romance is like a mixture of sexual attraction and friendship, but that's just me. Like, I don't think that there is a magical third thing which is romance, but that's just me. Other people have their own idea that, hey, this is a thing that makes romantic relationships unique. I don't know how you feel about it, but
Yeah, I've
what?
never really thought about defining it, but I suppose you're right. I think it's about like emotional connection, really. Um, yeah, I've never really thought of defining romance before, but I think you got it.
But in any case, it's about having that deep existing relationship with someone, and also this other relationship with someone, which is okay. We're going to do this business together. Is that a fine definition?
Yeah.
Okay. So, why do you and Lewis work well together? Are you a good match together in both of these things?
I think we communicate really well. We're very honest with each other. Like if one of us is uncomfortable or sad or angry, like we're able to talk to each other about that and usually resolve it. It's very, very, very rare that we ever like argue or fight because usually we deal with things before they get to that like kind of
Hmm.
catalyst point. Um, and I think we're both creative, but in different ways. So Lewis is very like big ideas, big picture, like off think dreaming about building like an empire. And I'm a lot more like I'm creative in different ways. Like I used to like make pottery and like I have like a very hands-on approach to stuff. And I like to visualize what something is going to look like. Um, but alongside that, I have this very like analytical brain, which I never really recognized before I started my current work. Like I always thought, oh, I'm like very creative. I don't really think like very logically. And then I realized that yes, I actually do a lot. So I kind of am very good at planning, and like with the convention appearances and stuff like that. That's something that Lewis just feels totally overwhelmed by because it's a lot of organization that
Hmm.
goes into it. So we kind of just match up quite well, like where one of us has weaknesses, the other has strengths. And if neither of us can do something, we're able to admit, okay, we need to hire someone to do this for us. Like we have an accountant, and honestly, I love him. He saves me so much stress and time, and he just gets everything sorted. He understands what we do. So yeah, I think that's another benefit is being able to admit we need help to do this. Um, we have a weakness here and we need to fix it. And yeah, I think it's just it's a combination of being able to communicate really well and just being able to kind of support each other, and where one of us isn't so good at something, the other is. And if we aren't, then we find someone who is.
I think you touched on such lovely things. Like, obviously, communication is something that we've all heard so much about. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable and say, "Hey, I need help with this,"
Mhm.
admitting it to the other person, um, solving issues before they become raging issues, and having people that's out with the two of you, not just designers and artists, but hey, let's get accountants involved
Mhm.
and whatnot. Um, like, I guess, yeah, Alan's asking, do you find it easy to switch off from work matters yeah.
No. I think both of us have brains that like process stuff in the background. For example, after the playtest I did on Thursday night, I went to bed. It was gone midnight. I went to bed and I was like, okay, I need to sleep now. But my brain was thinking, okay, what if they did this? What are they trying to get with this game? Like, what's the puzzle? And like my brain wouldn't stop thinking about it. And I had the same issue when I was at my full-time job. Like I would take stuff home with me, and it's something I need to work on, honestly. And Lewis is the same. We both tend to sit and think. With him, it's more game design. He usually has at least 5 ideas he's working on at one time, and he'll like be thinking about that in the background while he's doing everything else.
Hmm. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, parts of it might be that because you're married, because basically you're in that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's in that, well, all your assets are joint,
Mm-hmm.
presumably, and you're sharing everything, and you've got so much trust going on. It feels that because you've got all this pre-existing trust, you're able to build upon that, because potentially if you if you didn't have that, idea that, okay, we're going to spend the whole rest of our lives together, then it might be in the situation where, oh, I'm doing a little bit more, and even the stuff going on in your mind, you might start to resent it.
Yeah, I think that is something that you have to be conscious of. I think there was a little bit of stress when I was like not helping so much with the business because it put it all on Lewis. And I think it's only after the fact that we necessarily like registered that as an issue. And now I'm like a lot more conscious, and we try and make sure that we're helping each other out whenever we can. And I think it is very easy for like that resentment to build up. But it's just a case of communicating it as soon as you feel it and saying, look, I need to be honest, and this is how I'm feeling. And I think what we do a lot also is recognize that sometimes the things we're feeling, they aren't rational, they aren't logical. I'm an incredibly anxious person, and therefore a lot of the things I worry about are things that I don't need to worry about, but they're still there. So it's a case of saying, look, I'm really worried about this. I know it's not necessarily a logical thing to be worrying about, but it's there and I need to talk about it. And like, it's really good to be able to express that. Otherwise, these things just grow bigger and bigger and bigger in your head.
Yeah, being able to have someone who's not just going to say, well, that's not logical, but kind of accepting that these feelings are totally valid.
Yeah.
Regarding switching off from work, Alan Allison says, do you have spaces that are set aside specifically just for work or just for relaxation? Or do you even have any times that are specifically for one or the other?
We don't have set spaces, like, because our kitchen and living room are like open plan and our desk is in the living room. I sometimes work on the sofa, even though I shouldn't, instead of working at the desk, so there's no separation there. And it's also that the desk is used for relaxation. So if we play a board game, we play it at the same place where we work. And then sometimes we play a game and then we're both sat there like, oh, see, this didn't feel quite right. I wonder what they could have done differently. So even though you're relaxing and playing a game, like, our work brains are still trying to evaluate what we're doing.
I think if you're a designer or developer, that's parts of you that's always going to be...
It's hard to switch off.
And I don't think you need to switch it off because it is another way to enjoy games. Do you not think? Do you not think that critical analysis is part of the enjoyment?
Oh, definitely, for me. And I think, like, I played a game recently where we didn't necessarily enjoy it the first time, but I kept wanting to come back to it because it was like a puzzle that I had to solve. I was like, okay, how do people enjoy this? Why do people enjoy this? And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I also enjoy it now. I think it's good to be inquisitive. It's not like we're playing the game, sitting down and thinking, oh, this doesn't quite work, and then redesigning it, because that would be crazy because it's a fully published game. But it is interesting that you still have that aspect that you are exploring even when you're relaxing.
Are you willing to name names for that game?
It was Villages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Published by Dave. I can't remember. Hackone is the designer. Oh yeah, you've got it there. I can see it.
Hackone Ho Garda?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I just we played it and we just couldn't get our heads around it. And then, I played it again and again and again, and I think Lewis was kind of fed up with it at the end. But I was like, oh, okay, I get it, I enjoy it now, and I backed Streets. It was just like we didn't quite gel with it the first time.
Yeah, and I had Dave Clark on, I think, a couple of weeks ago. If people want to, I think we chatted about pre-Kickstarter marketing, and he basically talks about how everything goes down to luck, which was incredibly gracious of them. But getting back to the point, it feels like this whole, okay, we're going to explore these things together, and we've both got that same analytical point of view. Maybe that's what parts of makes you a same team. And being able to say, hey, I don't know why this game isn't being enjoyed. I'd like to play it more, and the other person being able to say, okay, I don't really want to play it again, but sure, if you really want to. It seems like you're being a bit masochistic. And yeah, presumably you have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Embrace each other's idiosyncrasies and sometimes make personal, um, you know what I'm looking like.
Sacrifices?
Yeah, personal sacrifices for the other person. For yeah, because it's a bit of one person's vision, a bit of one person's vision, and then you need to kind of share that. Or alternatively, do you think that there needs to be one person who's able to, is there one person in the relationship who's like, okay, if it ever came down to it, would you or Lewis be, okay, I'm making the final stand? Or has it never had to come down to that?
I'm racking my brains. I don't know. I think usually we just discuss stuff a lot. Like we usually talk about why we both feel a certain way, and then usually if we don't agree by the end of it, we'll come back to it at a later date, and then we'll like listen to what each other has to say and think, okay, is this a smart choice? Like, is this something we're worried about? And I think there's a fair share. Sometimes Lewis will say, no, I think this is the right thing to do and I'm doing it. And sometimes I'll say, no, I think this is the right thing to do and I'm doing it.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think, I think we're not like a stereotypical, like who wears the trousers kind of relationship. It's quite a even split, really.
And do you think that that's, okay, within your area of logistics and general business management, you wear the trousers, or in you know, I don't know, design or development, and maybe Lewis wears the trousers, or even within that, is there a lot more permeability?
I think usually when we're doing stuff, we'll ask each other for opinions and say, okay, I think this is the right decision. What do you think? And we'll take it on board, and then we'll kind of like weigh up what we want to do. I think Lewis definitely has more say in the game design and game development because he's far more experienced in that than I am. I can play a game and I can say, okay, I don't like this, maybe this works instead, but I don't have the experience of how to actually implement that change or how that might affect balance. I'm very much like a ideas, not a this is how you do it kind of person when it comes to game development, although it's something I'm really interested in. And yeah, because like the decisions I can make with the logistics, they usually have like a cost associated. Like it's where are we going to stay in the hotel? What van are we going to rent? Like how much we're paying for the stand?
Cost.
Like it's financial costs, which does affect both of us because we're 50-50 in the business. So usually I'll talk to Lewis about what I'm thinking. He'll talk to me about the game design development stuff, but I don't necessarily have like an influencing decision in that because I just don't have the experience to back it up.
And so sometimes Odin says you might just say, oh, it's not in the budget.
I usually am the person to say no to spending. I'm a lot more like cautious when it comes to money.
Now, yeah, I wanted to get a little bit into the potential pitfalls. So have there ever been times when you thought, oh my gosh, why did I ever engage in business with Lewis? Or indeed, why did I ever engage in love with Lewis? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm announcing his divorce on this stream. No, I'm not. I don't. With the business, I don't think so. I think in the heat of the moment, sometimes when you're disagreeing and you feel like you're not being listened to and you need that break and then to come back to what you're talking about, sometimes you can think, oh, this is so frustrating. Like, he's not listening to me. Like, our opinions just aren't ever going to match up on this. How are we going to resolve it? I think that can be frustrating. I don't think I've ever been at a point where I like thought I'd made a mistake, either with Lewis in general or with the business. I think we've never, luckily, been in a position where either of us, well, he might come on stream later and say, actually, yes, it's all a big mistake and I regret everything. But for me, I don't think I've ever felt that, thankfully. But I think that is down to the fact that we do communicate. About business or about life, Alan?
I think Alan's just talking in general. He must have had at least one huge argument.
Don't know. Not really. Like, we just aren't like very argumentative people. I think Lewis is quite non-confrontational, and I also don't like confrontation.
But you say you're
We just don't.
non-confrontational, but at the same time, from everything you've told me, it sounds like you're really all about getting things out into the open, which is,
Mm.
there is a lot of confrontation involved in doing that and saying, yes, I am going to talk to you about these things. And I don't know if we want to start comparing Emily and to be like, okay, which one's more diplomatic, which one's more friendly.
I mean, I think Lewis is more diplomatic than me. I can be very stubborn, whereas
Okay.
Lewis is a lot more like diplomatic about it. So yeah, I'm happy to admit that I'm the weaker one in the diplomacy terms.
Have you ever played diplomacy?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So yeah, this whole thing about working together, having this, oh, you're never going to understand me, and then you kind of want a bit of a break, right? But if your break is now, okay, for the entire rest of the day, I'm going to keep seeing this person because I'm living with them, is that ever an issue? Because like because presumably you have to be able to, even if you're not turning off in your own brain, at least say, okay, now we're not going to talk about it after, we've talked about it for an hour, we've not managed to reach a resolution, let's just stop talking about it for X days. Do you do something like that? Or
It's never like verbally we say, okay, we need to like table this. It's kind of like both of us say what we need to say. We kind of like understand what the other person's saying about it. We don't necessarily agree. And we just kind of, I think both of us just reflect on it, like internally. And we'll still talk about like other normal stuff. It's never like it makes us so angry that we ignore the other person, but like that doesn't happen. And you just kind of get on with everything else that you need to do. Like we need to like feed Rowan, we need to wash Rowan, we need to keep the flat tidy, we need to like do all of these other things that seem in the grand scheme of things more important than this small one thing that we can't agree on. Especially with Rowan now, like that's such a huge focus point that really you kind of sometimes forget about all the other stuff.
And Tally asks how you got to this point. Like, were you always like this?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know. Yeah, that's really hard. I don't know. I think we used to be like that before anyway, because you have to kind of take time to understand where the other person is coming from. Because I think in the moment, if it does get a little bit heated and you're like, oh, you're not listening to me, you kind of have to take that time to think, okay, why? Like, what's driving the other person to focus more on what they're feeling than what I'm thinking or saying to them? And I think that's important. I think that's always kind of been there for us.
I mean, it makes me kind of reflect on the fact that communication, even though it's easy to think of it as the interplay or the chemistry between two people, it kind of feels like it is very much a skill that each person can develop individually. So, I like to believe that I would be a better communicator in relationships today than I was 5 years ago, for example. And, we can continue to work on ourselves. And, some people are just raised very well with all this. And your thing about just absorbing and reflecting, however you get to this point, it feels like this is the critical key.
Yeah, being able to take a step back and look at it from the other person's perspective. Because I think it's easy for me to say no to an idea that Lewis has when Lewis might have invested like a lot of emotion and time in that idea, and it's like you have to think like, okay, maybe it was unfair to like immediately dismiss it like that because obviously he's invested in this. So I think it is important. I think personally, like, my mum is very like in touch with her feelings and we're very close, so I'm used to like having that emotional communication with someone. And Lewis, when he was growing up, I think he was always quite sensitive, especially for, you know, like a man. So I think that's influenced it a lot. I think we just brought it out in each other. Like, I think as soon as one of us made ourselves vulnerable to the other, it kind of brought down that wall, and ever since then we've just been building on that.
And so, yeah, this is really good stuff, kind of remembering that there is such dangers out there as toxic masculinity, which it strikes me that Lewis just hasn't suffered in any way from, you know, which...
Yeah, I mean, I think, or at least by the time I knew him, he'd kind of like recognized it. Yeah, it's just strange because like I never had like that, like, you know, sometimes when you're talking to someone and they have that like emotional wall and they're just like, you know, reflecting back at you with like humor or jokes. I never had that with him. It was always just like honesty. And I think really that is a big factor in why we work well together, because I don't think I'd be in a relationship with someone who couldn't have that openness and vulnerability with me, because that's just not like how I function, really.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear how well you work with each other. And I want to wrap up by asking you to give any tips if you, I mean, if you feel comfortable sharing any.
I mean, obviously we're by no means experts. Like, we've made mistakes and we'll make mistakes in the future. But I think some of the most important things are, if you're working together with someone closely, like even if it's a close friend and not someone that you're in like a romantic relationship with, like, you need to be able to recognize what each of you is good at and what each of you isn't so good at. And if there are things that you can't match up between you, if there's still like a weakness there or a lack of knowledge, don't be afraid to find someone who can help you with it, because otherwise you kind of carry on burying your head in the sand thinking, oh no, it'll be okay, like I'll work out how to do it, or it'll fix itself, and then before you know it, it's spiraled into a bigger issue. So I think that's really important. And yeah, just communication. Like, just talk about how you're feeling, and if someone's done something to upset you, just try and have like a non-confrontational, open discussion about how and what you can do to move forward. I think that those are the two most important things.
That's some really lovely stuff, and so thank you very much for being here. Alan Alton suggests you both give up game publishing and go into relationship advice.
Or maybe we make a game that is relationship advice. Kind of like Fog of Love, Flatter Me cards, like mashup.
You know that game that was made on Dragon's Den, and it was actually playtested at Loading Bar near where I live. Yeah, in Shoreditch, where I used to go back in the day, you know, 6 months ago. I used to go every Tuesday pretty much. You know, this was a great thing, and actually Tabletop Tuesday was one of the inspirations of like the Bezzy Game Day, which we were talking about potentially for 17th of October. I say potentially, we've kind of... I'm at the point of double checking with everyone that were doing this, but just to have a quick, let me take off this banner. So since I've started talking about it, that's going to be myself maybe sharing 2 games because, hey, it's my thing. Then Chris Bock is sharing How Much Money, yourselves sharing Dead and Breakfast, Dave Mortimer and Alan Paul sharing Ming Voyages, and Isaac Shalev coming in for Coup for You. And yeah, I'm planning kind of this to be an ongoing thing, like maybe every 2 or 3 months sort of thing. We'll see how it goes. And hopefully people will come in and have fun with this very small number of games because, yeah, but anyway, back to the point. is that in this place, Tabletop Tuesday, they had this thing which was done in Dragon's Den, and it was done terribly. Like all the relationship advice it was basically a quiz game where it was almost as if it was saying there is only one correct answer to these questions. For example, one of the questions was, and it was very prejudiced and gendered and not even heteronormative. It wasn't like even it was like just beyond stereotypes. You know what I mean? It was like, how does a woman like to be asked out? And then like if you got and so like one of them would be the correct answer.
Oh no. That sounds awful.
Yeah, it was a very, very bad game. I think like they sold out of their stock because, to be fair, the shops that bought them, they had like a print run of, I don't know, like 100 games. So realistically, they are going to sell out. And shouldn't be that hard for them, because if I was like, hey, you know what, you're going to be able to say that this game was as seen on Dragon's Den TV, I would be pretty confident of selling 100 copies of something no matter how rubbish it is.
Yeah, because people are going to buy it because it has that sticker on it that says, oh, this was on TV, and therefore it's good, even if by the sounds of things it was not.
Yeah, it was terrible, but you know, you see them going around London into all the game shops, and it's like, honestly, as a self-publisher, it's kind of aggravating because they have the advantage of anyway, like, this is a complete tangent, but like it's just aggravating because not only do they sell out because they've got the benefits of being as seen on Dragon's Den, but B, they get to have meetings with all the buyers for like all the big stores, if you know what I mean, that you've not been able to achieve, I don't think. I've not been able to achieve, even though like our games are like way better, just because, you know, Alan Sugar's behind it, and Alan Sugar's like, oh yeah, sets up a meeting for TV, and then, you know, Waterston says, oh yeah, of course, come in, have a meeting. And it's like,
unrealistic, and it undermines the hard work that people like self-publishers and smaller indie publishers do, because it seems like it's easy. It's like, oh yeah, you know, just walk into John Lewis and ask for a meeting with the big boss, and you'll get all your games in there. It just doesn't really happen like that.
Yeah, it kind of reaffirms how many doors are opened by that connection to, you know, the stars of the show. And it makes the point, if anyone wants to know how I like to be asked out, ask me out, and we'll see if you got it right. And that's the thing. Like, anyway, so I mean, relationship advice, because it has to be tailored for individuals, and board games, because they have to be the same rules every time. You know, it has to be a fixed set of rules. I don't know if that could really work.
It wouldn't work, I don't think, because it's so bespoke, because it all depends on what the people in the relationship are like. It's, you know, everyone has a different personality, and everyone has a different way that they react to certain situations. I don't think you can give like a one-fits-all kind of advice, because what works for me will not work for the next person.
Yeah. So I think this is seems like a reasonable time to wrap up, unless, you know, other people have comments or questions. Odin says, there are a few games and publishers who have found some success despite terrible games or being terrible people. So frustrating. Speaking of which, I'm not going to say that Danny Arrington is a terrible person.
Oh, yes, I've seen this.
It is my belief that it is my opinion, and I'm going to be very careful how I say that Danny Arrington is a terrible person. Having worked 2 steps removed from Danny Arrington in certain things, you know, it is my opinion that anyone who sets up a company and then it gets really bad name, and rather than trying to salvage that, then they set up free imprints, and then those imprints starts off making more games because people have short memories and people get confused. And, you know, anyone who's been what's okay, charged. I don't know if it's technically charged because charging is something that the authorities do. So Zev Schlesinger kind of brought to order, it was something like that against Dan to say, hey, you've not met your parts of things.
The
And
deal.
even though they might have settled out of court and Dan wasn't technically necessarily found guilty, what I would say is that it is my opinion that anyone who's being what's the word, like when someone files a suit against you,
It's like accused, really, isn't it?
yeah, when someone's accused and like when someone has suits brought against them for when someone is sued, and by Zev is in my opinion, Zev is a very upstanding member of the community, and for Zev having met them in January seems incredibly chill. And for Zev to want to sue someone, it's my opinion that, Dan Yarrington must be a bit of a nasty piece of work.
Yeah, I've not heard great things. It's like Golden Bell as well, really, isn't it? Like it's a shame that there are people like that in the community and in the industry, but you get them everywhere. It's just hard to keep a track of who's who, really, isn't it? It's very difficult.
Yeah, I've got a list of I started up a blacklist of people earlier this year because I'm starting to have people working for me, like Chris is working 1 day a week and Jason's working, and also I've got a short memory. So basically it's like, okay, there's one person who's on my blacklist because of racism. I wouldn't work personally with Danny Arrington. There's, I've heard terrible things about JKLM, but that's like gone now. Marcus is no longer in the industry. And there's one other person that I'm not going to name because I think it was more incompetency and bad decisions rather than malice and being a bad person, if you know what I mean. But I still harbor negative emotions about that. Anyway, so
this took a dark turn.
wow, that was the suspense. I forgot to put up the like I should have a thing of instead of sad stuff like serious stuff. Like, I mean, it is kind of sad that there are some horrible people out there, and I think that's what it's all about. Let's move on to the recap, if that's fine. Apparently, the opposites of love is hate.
Yeah, we've covered all of them.
Yeah, we talked about mirrors and how mirrors are brilliant, and Elaine made a really good point. It's not just about vanity and checking out yourself, making sure you don't have broccoli or courgettes on your forehead, because, sometimes...
You're referencing this so much, Bez. I feel like this has happened.
Oh, thank you, Sally. I've never actually had vegetables on my cheeks before. It's just, but we talked about the dark room. We talked about whether you would want to play. There is no sorry. We talked about whether you would want to keep playing new games and get rid of your library, or just play with your library forevermore, and you just want to play all the new games, even if you can only play each game once. We talked about Rowan. We talked about meeting at 17. We talked about clashes, chaos, and order. We talked about starting the company at 2016 and how it's evolved. We talked about communication, about sharing vulnerabilities, about getting extra folk involved, whether that's an accountant or whatever, about how your brains keep ticking over, about whatever you do is okay, and being okay with the other person, and giving each other compassion and giving yourselves compassion, because there can be a lot of guilt involved. About addressing issues earlier on, about getting things into the open, addressing your feelings, about both taking things on board, absorbing, reflecting, being in touch with your feelings, admitting mistakes, recognizing strengths, recognizing weaknesses. Then we talked about Alan Sugar and Tabletop Tuesday and Horrible People. And I hope you have a lovely day, Tally. Thank you for being here. Do you have anyone?
That could either be very sweet or very creepy, depending on how you play it.
I think that if you give the impression that you need to be honest, if you're giving the impression that it's a big and there were pancakes.
Oh no, I want pancakes. They look really
Let me
good.
remove the banner. And so so Xates made these pancakes while we were chatting, and apparently these are the fluffiest pancakes that Xates has ever made. So congratulations, Xates. So do you have anything else to say as we wrap up? Or anyone in chat, do you have anything else to say?
I think you covered everything that we talked about, because we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, right. I take notes these days. I'm
very impressive.
Thank you.
Impressed.
I'm really getting more and more organized. And so apparently it might just be that Xates X didn't make particularly great pancakes, and so Xates is just naturally better at making pancakes than her ex-husband. So but I wish to give out a lot of thank yous to everyone who's been watching. I wanted to thank Tally and Odin, Xate, Alex, Alan, and everyone else who's been parts of the chats. It's been lovely to have you all. Oh, and Jess, who popped in earlier. It was lovely to see Jess. I can't remember. Oh, and Elaine. Elaine was here. It was lovely to see all of you and anyone who's lurking. So Alan asks, can Xates come on to give more advice, please? I don't know if they're meaning Xates or if they're getting you confused with Emily.
Maybe Alan just wants a pancake-focused show. How to make the fluffiest pancakes.
Okay. Because, apparently there's talk of... Oh, apparently Alan just wants Xate to come on and talk about food, Yeah, we could, that's about Bez's Belgian waffle bladder. So, anyway, that's the recaps. If you want to check me out, I'm stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, where you can buy my stuff, twitter.com/stuffbybez, where I tweet a lot, instagram.com/stuffbybez is shares of pictures of games I've been playing, games I've been making, or pretty stuff around in the natural world, twitch.tv/stuffbybez for streaming, facebook.com/thingsbybez is a thing, and stuffbybez@gmail.com is my email. And if you wish to find Emily, and for that matter, you've only got, you should give me more links to have, and then I can share more links into YouTube. So sort that out next time.
I will, I promise.
Okay. And so, and Alex says, I will follow you. But these are all the links that have been given, and you can talk about the other links that you didn't give me.
So we're at Braincrack Games on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our website is braincrackgames.com. Our shop is also on there if you want to buy any of our stuff. You can pre-order our latest game, Venice, at the bit.ly link there. We got the production copy earlier this week, and it looks amazing, and you should definitely buy it. It's very good. I'm at CMLeeClay on Twitter. If you wanted to find me on there, I tweet about whatever I want to tweet about. There's no theme. I wish I could say it's only board games, but that would be a complete lie. I think that's Oh, and if you want to join the raffle, it's the Board Game Raffle Group UK, and that goes live in 40 minutes. If you want to win a load of games by UK indie publishers, including Bez.
Exciting stuff. And well, I love this photo.
I know, it's so good.
But yeah, and oh yes, there's the question of raid. So that is, before we talk about the raid, what are we looking forward to? Hopes and ambitions, it's over to you for this final section. And I invite everybody, whether they're watching live, whether watching after the fact, whether they're Emily, to tell me, what are you looking forward to doing today or tomorrow or next week or whatever? Do you want to go first, Emily?
Sure. I am planning to make some cinnamon rolls this afternoon because I love cinnamon rolls. They're like the best thing. So I think I'm going to make some of those. I think we're going to play some more Pandemic Legacy, which I'm looking forward to. And yeah, I'm excited to see how this raffle goes. I'm hoping we raise lots of money for charity.
Oops, sorry, my connections. Things, cinnamon rolls. You win, baking.
Well, we'll see how they come out first.
Six is also looking forward to a real life game tonight. That sounds exciting. Alex is looking forward to lots of things and then looking forward to having time again. That sounds positive. Oh, we had so let's just catch up with the food chat. So what makes a waffle Belgian? That's a term for the thicker ones, especially if it's crystallized sugar pearls inside. But say it also makes them in lemon poppy seed in red velvet. Wow.
Oh
in pumpkin with spice. Wow, I want to hear more about these. Like the lemon poppy seeds sound pretty good. You know, pumpkin with spice.
Amazing.
Wow. Ambition level pancakes. Hello, Jay Foolsguard. Lovely to have you join the chat. And yeah, thanks for watching along. And yeah, all the best with those pancakes. Alan Alton's going to make a writing desk that is apparently quite unlike a raven, but it will fit on an armchair just like a raven, so I don't need to get up anymore, unlike a raven. I mean, a raven will not do any of those, not having to get up anymore. Anyway, so writing desk ambitions. I'm hoping to take some time off. When I say time off, I am going to be doing a bit of housework, but I'm going to first excuse myself from a couple of things, and then I'm going to wrap up a couple of things and then take some time off to hopefully do some cleaning, and then yeah, hopefully head out. It's quite sunny. I am feeling short of sleep, so I'm hoping that, yeah, to be honest, I had a really rough night of sleep last night. I can't begin to describe how terrible it's been, and I've just been feeling a bit physically sick, to be honest, the past couple of days. I'm fairly sure it's not COVID, but it feels like a pretty bad flu, like pretty bad headaches. And so, yeah, oof. Sleep Tracker said Alex's average bedtime was 1:45. That's not good. Oh, hello, CEO of Curls. It's lovely to have you. Oh, we've been raided. Oh my gosh. Obscure Curio, hello. You caught us just as we are wrapping up. Just to let you know what's going on here, I stream at 10 a.m. UK time every day. Today we have been chatting about love and business, about how board games interact, and you completely missed a recap, but it's lovely to have you all. And I am probably going to be, in a moment, reading potentially Bunkerzilla, because that is one of my friends who is streaming right now. and Bunkazilla is doing some. They're geeky people, and I used to do my weekly internet radio show on there. It is lovely to have you, Boss Hog. Everyone, wow, this is cool. So everyone were just like finishing up, and thank you very much. So yeah, wrapping up. We've just been talking about what you're looking forward to, what your hopes and ambitions are. If you want to join us, then feel free. Otherwise, I'm going to do a raid. If you would like to join, we're going to do the Bunkazilla UK. I need to raid Bunkazilla UK. Let's see if that works. And please feel free to share, spread the word. My next streams, if you want to check out that thing, it is stuffbybears.com/streams, and you will find my Google Calendar, which will tell you. I'm really excited about my next couple of days, where tomorrow we're going to be talking about localization, and then Monday is going to be a really big topic, the legality and ethics of online gaming with Mark Harris. And then we're going to be talking about something a bit more fun, which is tiebreakers, and a bit of design chats with Alan Paul, and then something completely ridiculous where we're going to be just chatting and staying neutral with Emma, Zaya, sorry, Emma. And I am going to sing, of course. So the only thing left to do is to say bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye. Raid, 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 raid. This is the raid time song. Raid, 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 raid. Thank you for raiding along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Lots of love. Have a wonderful day.